Hello loves, and welcome to today's video. It is the week of Valentine's Day, and while I had originally planned to give you some romance novel recommendations, I discovered I have not read enough romance since turning 18 to have any proper romance novel recommendations. So today, what I am going to do instead is do a tier ranking of different romance tropes to help me figure out what kind of romance I should be reading in order to have some recommendations for next year. So let's get started. Let's start with the first one, Slow Burn. I don't think I like Slow Burn. I think it's not my favorite, but I'll read it because if I'm reading a romance novel, I am reading a romance novel, and let's get to the point. If I'm reading something where they're not together yet, I will read another genre where there's a romance involved, a dedicated romance. Let's focus on the romance. Okay, friends to enemies to lovers. Friends to enemies to lovers. I think I'm also going to put this one in not my favorite, but I'll read it. I can't think of any examples I've read of friends to enemies to lovers. Normally it's just enemies to lovers or friends to lovers, so I think that's one that I would have to read in order to have a good enough example to decide whether I liked it or not. So we'll put that in not my fave, but maybe we can put a pin in that and try and find one to read. One of Us is Famous. Love it. I do really like a famous character, and whether both of them are famous or only one of them is famous, I do really enjoy that. I feel it adds some drama that is not necessarily found in other types of romance where both of them are normal people, and romance for me is escapism. So there is no ethical billionaires, but isn't it fun to imagine? So that one is a love it. Single parent, hate it, avoid it, block. I am not someone who ever plans to have children, so I do not want to read a romance that has children in it, whether that is children they have together, a single parent, whatever. It takes me out of it because it's not what I would be interested in, so avoid it, yes. Same with accidental pregnancy. Pregnancy at all in romance novels, maybe we'll have another one further down in here. Absolutely hate it. I don't like the halfway through of, oh, why am I feeling so sick? What mysterious thing could happen a literal week after we had unprotected sex? Hate it. It's so cliche. It's not interesting to me. Avoid it. Brother's best friend. Love it. As someone who doesn't like having to leave my home to talk to people, it just seems so convenient to have someone built in who's just hanging out at your house. That seems convenient, you know? And normally there's at least some kind of basis of them already knowing each other, but they're not so close that you feel like you're missing a lot of the development of the relationship. And the oh, what will our brother think adds a bit of drama. That's low stakes. So that one is a love it for me. And then best friend's brother, which I guess is different. I'm gonna put that in like it. Doesn't have the same convenience factor of usually your brother's best friend's just hanging around in your house all the time. Best friend's brother, yeah. I think that's just a like it. It has the same degree of a passing familiarity, but not so much that we feel we're missing the early growing of the relationship. So we'll put that in like it. Friends with benefits to lovers, put it in like it. I don't think I've ever read one that I hated, but I also can't think of any that I've really loved. It does allow the spicy stuff to start happening right away, which I enjoy, but not something that I need in a romance novel, so that's just going to be a like it. Workplace romance, not my fave, but I'll read it. Being someone in middle management, the HR nightmare that is dating someone in the workplace, that is especially what this ends up being a lot of, like dating your boss. That's so stressful. That's so stressful. I have to take annual compliance training that says I will not date my coworkers, especially any who report to me, and it takes me out of it. So, not my favorite, but I will read it occasionally because there are certain dynamics that it might work in, but not my fave. Enemies to lovers, love it. Do enjoy a good enemies to lovers. It's a cliche for a reason, and I think as long as it's pure enemies to lovers and not like rivals to lovers, it's a love it. If we go to like, oh my gosh, they are co-workers who got assigned to the same project, but they have such a rivalry of who's gonna get the promotion. Blech, boring. True enemies to lovers, like knife to throat enemies to lovers, love it. Love the drama. Yeah. Strangers to lovers, I'm gonna put this in like it because I feel like that trope is just very, very broad, because that covers a lot of romance novels that go in a lot of different ways. So for me, strangers to lovers, I do like it, but it really depends on the execution and the other factors that go into the romance. It's not the make or break one for me. Childhood love friends to lovers. I hate this trope, mostly because everyone always secretly and not so secretly thought I was dating my childhood best friend in high school. Why? I don't know. It was very clear if you thought about it for about 5 seconds that we were not dating, but we hung out a lot. And there may have been an instance where we snuck away at lunch to go to the chapel, but that was to trade Pokemon, and we just didn't want people to know we were 16 and still playing Pokemon. So, not my favorite trope, because it just brings up, is a strong word, but it just brings up some uncomfortable conversations I had as a teenager, so I don't really like the best friends to lovers trope. Teacher-student, gross. No. Age gap, power dynamics, it's just icky. Gross, icky, bleh. No to that one. Forced proximity. Love it. I love forced proximity. Any excuse to get these people in a room together and get the action going. Again, slow burn's not really my thing, and I feel like forced proximity is one of those things that gets us going at a good pace. Our first god tier trope, bad boy, good girl. I don't think I've ever outgrown the like seeing myself as a goody two-shoes throughout high school of the I'm gonna be a lawyer and therefore I have to abide by every law and rule I have ever been told. So, the idea of a bad boy, very appealing to me. God tier trope. Mafia romance. Also god tier trope, because it's the bad boy, good girl thing. Like 90% of the time. I guess sometimes you can have a female character in a mafia romance who's like maybe a rival mafia member. Yes, I did just kick the tripod, so the angle might be slightly different now, but we're rolling with it. Mafia romance is bad boy, good girl, usually. So it stays in god tier as a related trope. Grumpy Sunshine, also God tier. Grumpy Sunshine is the toned down version of Bad Boy Good Girl. It's the golden retriever boyfriend, black cat girlfriend. My high school crushes were usually the like very charismatic, always happy guy. So this is where I live, in where my tastes were developed, is Grumpy Sunshine. I'm the grumpy, by the way. Bodyguard romance? I do love it. Doesn't quite get into God tier, but I do love a bodyguard romance. That like protective thing, I go for it. There's a little bit of power dynamics, but they tend to be kind of at least a bit more on equal footing. So bodyguard romance, I love it. Right Person, Wrong Time, not my favorite, but I'll read it. I don't really go for romance that is more love story and doesn't have a happily ever after, and I feel like Right Person, Wrong Time, I want them together at the end. I don't want and then we parted ways having appreciated the experience we have. It's not what I'm here for. That is not what I'm here for. Only One Bread, God tier. It's the only one bed trope. It is the trope that people talk about when they talk about tropes. Of course it's going in God tier. I got my start in fan fiction. God tier trope. Only one bed. I hate everyone in the world but you. God tier trope. It's Grumpy Sunshine, elevated slightly. The grumpy hates everyone but you. Wedding romance? I like it. I've seen it done well. I've seen it done not well. I've only been to one wedding in my life, so sometimes I can't relate. I also don't have a huge family, so like if it gets too much into those dynamics, I'm like, eh. So I like it. Won't actively seek it out, but sometimes I enjoy it when it's incidentally in my past. Supernatural, God tier. Wow, we very quickly have packed the God tier here. Supernatural romance. I grew up on Buffy, thank you to my sibling. I grew up, OG Twilight was my era. And then I very quickly replaced that with my True Blood, and always been a vampire girly. Asterion from Baldur's Gate 3. If you're counting magic users, Anders and Gale. Supernatural is the God tier trope for me. Probably the best trope. Yes. Right Person, Not Wrong. Hate it, avoid it, blah. Sad endings. Why am I reading romance for sad endings? That's not romance to me. That's love story. And if I'm reading fluffy romance, or dark romance even, I don't want a depressing ending. I'm sorry. So, avoid it. Friends to lovers. I like it. It can't be the only draw of the story. There has to be other things in the narrative that I find interesting. It works a lot of the time, but sometimes authors tend to rely on them already having an established rapport to avoid having to build up any of the relationship between them. They just rely on, oh yeah, they've known each other forever, so they're like really close already, without having to show that. It's a tell not show thing, so like it, but I've seen it done poorly before. Good boy, bad girl? I like it. I would also say with both of those are very heteronormative. What if it's bad girl, good girl? I guess I haven't really seen any examples of this that I can think of. Yeah, I think that is a trope that I would have to explore to have an example of, to see whether I like or not. Because I can't even think of any I've heard of that have that trope. So we'll put it in like it in the middle. TBD. Stuck together, snowed in. That's love it. That's forced proximity, but worded differently. Forbidden romance. I'm gonna put that in meh, not my favorite, because I don't like the forbidden romance where it's like the gothic thing of I am of a different social class than you are and we can't be together because my family wouldn't approve. Like, if it's that kind of forbidden romance, I don't find that to be very interesting. If it's forbidden romance, like, I don't know, in like a fantasy setting where there's a curse and if they get together the entire world explodes, that could have some drama. That could have some uniqueness, nerve, and talent. But if it's the other kind, not my fave. Soulmates, like it. Again, similar to the friends to lovers, as long as they're properly still establishing that these people have chemistry and not just relying on, it says in the prophecy that they're soulmates. I like it. Mistaken identity, avoid it, because it kind of brings in some consent issues. And that makes me uncomfortable. That makes me very uncomfortable. So, avoid it. Second Chance at Love. Not my favorite, but I'll read it. Again, because I feel like some of these tropes, when there's an established relationship prior to the novel starting, it ends up relying a lot on they love each other from the past, and therefore I don't have to do any of the work to establish that they love each other and how they're compatible. So, not my fave, but I'll read it. Time travel, I like it. I did really like This Is How You Lose the Time War, which is a time travel romance. I used to be a very big Doctor Who fan. If that's more what we're talking about in terms of time travel, of traveling the world together, that's adorable. Yeah, time travel, I enjoy it. Love at First Sight, like it. I do like Love at First Sight. I am the kind of person who will see an attractive person on the bus and make a whole story in my head. So, Love at First Sight could happen. So, I like it. 3 left. Love triangle. Love triangle. I'm going to put this in not my fave, but I'll read it because I find that a lot of times with love triangle, there's someone you're very clearly rooting for and someone you couldn't care more or less if they were in the story or not. So, like, I'll read it, but it's usually not my favorite. I would rather have a Why Choose romance, which is not on this list. Fake dating. Love it. Again, forced proximity. Fake dating is an excuse to put these people in the room and get them going. And I think that there's a lot of room here to do some creative things. So fake dating, I love it. And sports romance. Not my fave, but I will read it. I am not a sports girly, despite me doing an archery competition this week. That's a new thing. So team sports, not my thing. And that is the final tier list. I think that I should be reading some mafia romance this year. And yeah, I hopefully will be able to work some of that into my reading of this year and have some updates for you next Valentine's Day on romance novels that I would recommend, since I did not have enough to make a full video this year. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below of maybe some Grumpy Sunshine, Mafia romance novels that I should be checking out for next year. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day!